Okay, I'd like to call to order the Township Council meeting for Tuesday, July 12th. If we could please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. For the record, I'd like to note that the council met in executive session regarding some real estate this evening at 6:30. If you look at your agendas, we're doing something a little different this month. We, at the beginning of the year, wanted to revisit our format for our council meetings and how they're held with regard to public comment and just other things to hopefully provide for a more streamlined and easier meeting to follow along with. So Amanda, as part of her groups she is with and some seminars she attended, came up with this concept that's used in a lot of municipalities of a business items and a consent agenda. And consent agendas normally are things such as paying the bills, approving the minutes, certificates of payments, and financial releases, things that we refer to as more of housekeeping items in the conduct of the township building. So the business items will now be handled after citizens' comments. Amanda, do you have anything you want to add to that?
No, I just want to say this is sort of us just kind of taking a look at what we have and making it better. As part of our discussions over meeting decorum and talking about what we do, I thought this would be helpful. I talked with several colleagues who do things, everybody does things differently, to be quite frank. So these were things that I thought addressed our needs and helped us with efficiency of the meeting and helped with, residents and keeping things moving along. So that was the point.
Thank you. All right, first item on the agenda then under recognition and announcements. Mr. Gillespie, we have some centenarians we want to honor in the township. I'll hand that over to you, please.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Oh, you're not one of them, right? No. Okay.
Moving right along. He's always got to get in there with that little dig. All right. Back in May, Delaware County had a luncheon for centenarians, which they do every year, and I attend. COSA and the county put the luncheon on. So I don't remember the exact number, it might have been 60 or 70 throughout Delaware County that were age 100 or more. One of them from Maris Grove. They were all in attendance. So when I came back, I said to our manager, why don't we reach out to Maris Grove? Maybe there's some others that didn't reply and want to be included with the luncheon. Oh boy, did we find out. At Maris Grove, I believe there's 14 people living there that are age 100 or greater. So we decided to honor them with certificates of recognition. Tonight we're going to do 7 of them. And it's interesting, we have 6 women and 1 man. So we can see that the women do outlive the men. That's a given. So each of the certificates reads the same way. The only difference would be the name and the age. So I will read the certificate one time, then I'll read the names and then the ages. So it's the Centenarians of Concord Certificate of Recognition is presented to, and then I'll read all the names. In sincere and grateful recognition of remarkable achievement of 100 years of life and invaluable contribution of wisdom, experience, and longevity. Given this 12th day of July, 2022 at Concord Township Municipal Building, 43 South Thornton Road, Glen Mills, PA. So the first one is for Phoebe Taylor, and Phoebe is 100. John Rosselli, age 100. Carol Flood, age 100. Ann Letty, age 100. Mary DiMarzio, age 100. Elizabeth Ulray, 102. And Gureen Grubb, age 102. So that's the first attempt. I believe, Amanda, correct me if I'm wrong, at our next monthly meeting, we'll do the remainder.
Yep, at the August meeting, there are several others who have birthdays to come, so we will be honoring them at that time.
Mr. Gillespie, I assume that's in the form of a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Benita. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
As far as upcoming meetings and events, on July 13th, we have the Historical Commission meeting. I think that's been canceled, though, hasn't it?
Yes.
July 14th, Patriotic Pet Parade, that's at the park. July 14th, also the ice cream social, pets are included, and concert in the park at 7 p.m. The 18th, the Planning Commission meeting. The 20th, the Zoning Hearing Board meeting. The 22nd, movie night in the park. The movie is Grease, and it starts at dusk. The 26th, council agenda meeting as needed, and the 28th, concert in the park at 7 p.m. Under reports, the first report is the finance report. Dana, I think we have a quarterly report due.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. The Township's CED report was filed in April. The Township's auditors are still awaiting financial reports from PMRS related to the Township's pension plan. PMRS has recently notified municipal participants that all necessary information has been provided to the plan's actuaries, and financial statements will begin to be distributed this month. Anticipation is that all financial statements will be issued by September. Once our auditors have this information, they will be able to finalize the Township's 2021 audit and issued audit financial statements. Presently, our operating expenditures are on track to meet the budget expectations. Operating expenditures are currently 46% of budget expenses, as well as operating revenues are at the same 46%. For revenue, current year-to-date real estate collections total $1,512,201. This equates to a collection rate of 96 compared to total budget revenues. Total collections are slightly lower than this time of year, as there have been numerous refunds issued by the county after finalized real estate reassessment appeals within recent months. The Township Finance Director and engineers are working to finalize and submit final project work papers for 2 grants related to the Chetty Conservation Easement. The Township will receive $250,000 from Delaware County and $246,700 from DCNR once the grants have been closed out. For our expenditures, capital projects are progressing. Renovations to the first floor of the community center have begun in recent weeks. The contract for the Township roof pointing and facade repairs have been assigned, and Township engineers are working with contractors to have work begin soon. The Township Public Works Department, we have our director here, Dan Moyer, has been working diligently repairing and replacing inlets along the roadways that are included on this current year's road program. To date, the Public Works Department has replaced 18 inlets throughout the Township. On average, the Township has saved approximately $3,000 per inlet compared to the cost of each repair replacement if we used a third-party contractor. The Township has remitted the first payment of our annual contribution to the Rachel Cole Library and Concordville Fire Company. Both payments are based on year-to-date real estate collections at the time of disbursement. For our expectations, as previously noted, the Finance Department is working with Township engineers to track grant expenditures for all capital projects. Reimbursement requests are being submitted as soon as possible to grantor agencies and recoup upfront costs as soon as possible for ongoing Township grant-funded projects. We expect to receive reimbursements for these ongoing projects as budgeted. However, there are delays in our projects due to the state and other local organizations that were unforeseen. Because of this, reimbursements will most likely not be received to meet budgeted expectations, and instead will be received in 2023, once we are able to continue with these projects. The sewer main plant has received the equipment and parts that had been delaying the EQ pump and main lift station upgrade projects. Currently, the new equipment is being installed and tested, and expectations are still that this capital project will be completed online by the end of the year. The sewer main plant is in the final stages of preparation to open both sides of Plant A and run side A and B simultaneously. Because of the ongoing capital improvements and increases in flow and future connections, the decision to operate both sides of the plant simultaneously were done so after the finalization of the 2022 budget. The sewer department is monitoring costs associated with plant operations very closely. The expectation at the end of the year is still that operating costs in certain areas related to maintenance, chemical supplies, and sludge removal will exceed budgeted expectations. Thank you.
Thank you. Public Safety, Benita.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good evening, everybody. Once again, this month, the Fire Marshal's report had positive news in the reduction of events as compared to last month or last year around the same time. There are some items that need our attention and some conscious efforts from all of us as township residents on some of the facts that will also help us keep our township safe. We continue to see more requests for the emergency medical service assistance, which is unavoidable and understandable. We have had zero, and I'm very pleased to announce that we had 0 false alarms last month of June. We did see quite a bit of spike early spring this year, and then with all the safety tips we have been giving, I'm glad that the residents are following those. We have zeroed out on all of those false alarms in the month of June. I want to thank all the residents, and I do appreciate your efforts for following all these tips. This month, we did see spike in motor vehicle accidents on our Concord Township roads, and there were also motor vehicle accidental alarms. Our fire department also completed a number of fire code inspections to confirm compliance. The Pennsylvania State Police report was more of a county report, but I can still go on the numbers. These were not just specific to Concord Township. Overall, area-wise, they had 33 crashes, 4 DUI arrests, 99 traffic stops, 2 burglary, 2 crime mischief, 23 thefts, 8 retail theft, 4 theft fraud, and 8 domestic violence. Noteworthy incidents of the month were on June 11th, 2022 at approximately 9:30 a.m. Troopers responded to Cheney Road at Millwright Drive in Concord Township, Delaware County, for 1 vehicle collision into a telephone pole with wires down and entrapment. Upon arrival, contact was made with the operator of Thornton, PA, who was alert and uninjured, but trapped inside the vehicle, which was in contact with live wires. PICO arrived and shut down the power to the lines in a timely fashion. The operator was safely extracted from the vehicle and transported to Crozier-Chester for evaluation. Trooper KIM is investigating. Assisted on this scene were also several other troopers. On 6/15 at approximately 7:25 p.m., troopers responded to target at 600 Hayton Drive in Concord Township, Delaware County, for a report of retail theft in progress. Pennsylvania State Police did report to the scene, and troopers canvassed the area with negative results. In light of all of these events, the safety tip for this month for our residents in regards to the accidental alarms, car alarms, is there are many reasons for accidental car alarms, including low battery charge, sensitive movement sensor, faulty hood or door sensor, or faulty key fob. If you are getting too many accidental car alarms, please make sure that you check your car in a timely fashion to find out what is causing it. Take all precautions to avoid any thefts or burglaries in the area and look for vulnerable spots. And also understand that the fire department will still come even if you ask them to cancel. This is only to ensure that if there is any smoke that causes the system or alarm to go off again, at least they can assist the homeowner in resetting it if needed, and to ensure the request to cancel is the correct thing to do. I do thank you all for taking all the precautions and making efforts to keep ourselves and our neighbors and the township residents safe. Thank you.
Thank you. Trails and Recreations, Mr. Cross.
Thank you, Mr. President. Later on in the agenda, we will receive a presentation of the updated comprehensive township open space plan, which I am excited that we are prepared to adopt. But in addition to that, you mentioned some upcoming events. This Thursday, we do have the Patriotic Pet Parade, a concert. Next week is a movie night, Grease. If you have a classic car, please feel to bring it out. If you want to dress as a pink lady or, swoop your hair back, feel free to do that too. Or you can just come watch the movie. And with regard to past events, Vanita, John Gillespie, and I were proud to be judges with Susan Sternberg from the Rachel Cole Library for our pie contest, which was very exciting. We had almost 25 entries, which is a lot of pie to taste. But I will say it was all very good. And our 5th place winner were the brothers Rohit and Rohan Rajgopalan with their key lime pie. 4th place was Lindsay Valakevich with her Oreo pie. 3rd place was April McKenzie with her blueberry lavender crumble. 2nd place was Allison Carey with her pecan pie. And 1st place, which was to die for, was Marianne Perry's strawberry lover's pie. And I think we need to post that recipe online. With regard to open space updates, we are continuing to work with our township professionals, the solicitor and engineer, on working through the agreement of sale and associated documents for the conservation easement over at the Wilcox property in Ivy Mills. And with regard to the goats over at Bush Hill Farm, I want to continue to remind residents to keep their dogs on leash at all times in our parks, except in designated areas, and to please respect the goats and sheep. They are privately owned, but they are their owner is on site generally and always happy to answer any questions.
Okay. Sewer and Public Works, Mr. Gillespie.
Thank you, Mr. President. With the sanitary sewer report first, this is the monthly activity report for June. The operations staff performed 11 lateral inspections for resale certification. The startup of the new EQ pumps took place at the main plant last week, June. The lift station modifications and pump installations are still ongoing. All new equipment shall be online in the next few weeks. The solicitors, that is the township solicitor and the sewer solicitor, continue to finalize necessary service agreements and contracts with the Chester Water Authority needed to bid out the Concord Road North sewer project. And engineering work continues on the Cambridge, Smithbridge, and Mill Race water wheel sewer project plans. In regard to the sanitary sewer crew, the daily and weekly activities, they do check 23 pump stations and operate 2 wastewater plants, collect samples, and additional projects. There's about 15 various projects and duties within the month. And then over to Public Works, the daily and weekly activities, vehicle maintenance, maintain trails, mowing, road maintenance, and inlet cleaning. Monthly activities are tree removal, shoulder repair, sinkhole repairs, the AME church, grading and seeding, and the memorial for the AME church, assistance on Juneteenth event at the AME church. And reported earlier, with recent hires, we are saving dollars by having Public Works do more work that they had previously done, as opposed to hiring outside contractors. And a personal sound out to Public Works for the assistance with the AME Church project. And all the years I've been involved with Concord Township, it's the AME Church seems to be right at the forefront of my experience. And without Public Works help and township staff, these things just couldn't happen. So I'm very, very excited about what's going on with the AME Church, and that would be the end of the report.
Okay, thank you. Building and Code Enforcement, Colleen is not in town, so I will handle. We had 75 total permits for the month of June of 2022, and in 2021 we had 74, oddly enough. One thing to note, in June of 2021, we had 29 residential resale certifications. In June of 2022, we have 18. So I guess the housing market is starting to cool off. As far as new businesses, probably the one of note is Spread Bagelery in the Glen Eagles Shopping Center. I think that's on the side, will be the Concord Township side, about midway along there, is now open for business. Next on the agenda, the Planning Commission. Larry.
Thank you, Dominic. Planning Commission activities for June 2022, letter dated June 28th, 2022. Sean Lawler, Chairman. Jamer Doty is Vice Chairman. The Planning Commission agenda meeting was held on June 13th, 2022, and the public meeting, as we mentioned, was canceled for June 20th, 2022. The Planning Commission did issue comments to Council for the Concord Township Comprehensive Recreation Park and Open Space Plan. Scheduled for this month, the agenda meeting will be held on July 11th, 2022, and the public meeting will be held on July 18th, 2022. Solicitor, please.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
Thank you. Be advised that on yesterday, July 11th of 2022, correspondence was sent to the Honorable Wendy Roberts regarding the Township of Concord versus 7-Eleven Concord Holdings LLC. Mr. Cavadias has indicated that he's forwarding an update of the above referenced case status for the judge's consideration and to have the case listed for a hearing sometime in August. The case was continued on condition that the defendants applying for lighting permits with specific lighting design specifications for installation of new light poles and shielding for existing lights. The defendants were to apply for permits and have the proposed installations, taking into account possible material delays, completed by February of 2022. The defendant applied for and received the necessary building permit and an electrical permit on March the 23rd of 2022. Since that time, no permit-related work has taken place other than the shielding that had been provided for the pre-existing lights. And that letter, as I said, went out on yesterday's date. Other than that, there are no other matters regarding present litigation.
Okay. The Township Engineer is out of town. John, you want to handle that one, please?
Certainly, thank you. I have a memorandum from Nate Klein, who's on vacation. There's 5 items on his report. First one is he submitted a request to PennDOT to modify 202 and Ridge Road / Spring Hill Drive signal to install no U-turn for northbound 202. Number 2, PennDOT consultant is submitting their analysis on trucks on Concord Road to PennDOT this week. Number 3, coordinating with PennDOT project manager for Baltimore Pike paving. They indicate they finished the work at Thornton but have 2 to 3 weeks of concrete patching remaining before they can begin milling and paving. I'll be checking with them every other week or so, but we should see some activity by the end of July. Number 4, pickleball courts are nearing substantial completion with the surface installed this past week. We are coordinating punch list items and repairs of existing courts, which will require a temporary closure once we open the new courts. More to follow on that one. And number 5, the road program schedule is being finalized. PennDOT approvals have been received. That's end of report.
Thank you. Township Manager Amanda.
Sure. I just wanted to add into the pickleball conversation. I have a lot of folks who use the courts, and the courts look like they're complete and why they can't use them. And I just would like to point out these are performance contracts that we have with bidded contractors. So we have to be very mindful as to exactly when we can let folks on the courts so that there's no issues that arise and I don't have a contractor saying they're not paying for it or vice versa. So I just want to make sure people understand it's not us not wanting people to use courts. It's just we have contracts in place and we have to abide by them like the rest of the world. Additionally, I just wanted to bring up, to follow up with John's comment regarding the goats and park hours. Our park hours are open basically dusk till dawn. So if you are there past those hours, you are violating an ordinance. Unfortunately, we've had some issues over at 30 Bethel where some folks have been there late at night, I guess the best way to say that is messing with the goats. So please refrain from doing so. There is video surveillance in that area. There's also video surveillance at our other parks. and here at the Township Building. So I just want to remind folks to make sure you're being kind and try to listen to the rules. Otherwise, we would have to cite you for not following that. And that's all I have to report. Thanks.
thank
Amanda, and I think just to clarify, so the hours are dawn till dusk, is that correct?
Correct.
Thank you.
Okay, next is citizen comment. Anybody with any questions or comments regarding anything in the township, please come forward. We will need your name and address for the record. Oh, Amanda, prior to this, we have one came in via email. Ken, give me one.
Okay.
Sure, go ahead.
Any word on the Octorara Trail?
Not at this point. We've been in discussions with PICO with regard to easements on PICO land. As you, Ken, personally are probably aware of, PICO has come out and said that they're restricting use of access on their land. Nate Klein has been working closely with them to work through the Octorara plans, and we're going back and forth with them on placement of the trail. So I believe we're hopeful that we can reach an agreement with them because we've been working with PICO for a long time on these plans. I think some municipalities maybe we're using PICO land and not in as good communication with them, so they may not get as far as we hope to.
Does PICO have an easement on the Octorara Trail?
There are, for the first phase, 1A and 1B, there's PICO land that's involved with that. Garnet Valley Greenway is all PICO land, but so that's completely dependent on a relationship and an agreement with PICO, but there are components of Octorara 1A and 1B.
So for council's benefit, when that Octorara Trail is done, it'll be the premier trail in Delaware County by far. You'll be able to bike from the Brandywine River Museum to the Chester Creek Trail, assuming Chester Heights ever fulfills their end of the bargain. So the sooner that happens, the better it is for Concord. I'm on Delco Planning with John, and we saw a plan for Beaver Valley last year to subdivide 3 acres. I think it's the Meany family. And I noticed that they had done like a cut into the hill onto Beaver Valley Road. Did they get a permit for that?
Yes, that was part of their approved work for their approved plan.
Because I thought they just had a approval to subdivide.
When I saw I know that when I drove by and saw that cut, I did contact Nate and the office here to confirm that that was legitimate and was not unpermitted work, and I believe that is the case. I believe that they seeded because there's some steep slopes there and so forth, so those needed to be seeded properly.
I think absent Nate being here, we're at a little bit of a disadvantage, but if we could follow up on that.
Sorry, so I missed the first part.
The Meany property.
The Meany property on Beaver.
Property.
Yeah.
I thought it was a land development subdivision because I thought he was carving out one lot for one of the kids, but
They had only
it's been so long I forget.
It was only a subdivision app.
Okay, well, we'll have to dig. If Nate was here, he could probably tell you just what was going on, but he's on vacation, unfortunately.
I'm hoping the township takes a look at the property next to that. It's a 3 or 4 or 5 acre Derrickson property. That would be nice to be added to the park or to keep open. So the Derricksons, it's at the crest of Beaver Valley Road. So I don't know if you've ever driven Spring Valley Road up to Concord Road and tried to make a left or a right. It's incredibly dangerous. I saw someone almost get slammed the other day. I make a left there a lot because it's a safe left turn, but people coming up from 322, it's almost a completely blind turn. You have to pull into the road almost to see oncoming traffic. I'm wondering if the township will consider a one-way for that, at least past the driveway from the house. Like, so when you turn off 322, you might see a sign that says one way ahead, so the person can access their house there. Something to consider for the township.
Let's have Nate take a look at that. Spring Valley.
Spring Valley, yeah, on the east side of 322. So
That's when you come up that hill there?
yes,
Yeah, that's always been a bad spot.
very bad, and it's the bamboos real high there, and you can't see onto Concord Road
In
at
fact,
all.
there's, you really think about it, you even wonder why that road has to go all the way through, so that might be part of a bigger picture.
Yeah. Wondering if the township will revisit left red arrows across 2 lanes of traffic. If you look around the township, there are plenty of places where you actually can cross 2 lanes of traffic. there are no lights there, you can turn into Cambridge Downs, you can turn into businesses up and down 202, across, in some spaces or places, 3 lanes. On Route 1, you can turn onto Thornton Road, well, before the work began there. So, I mean, there are plenty of lights that have good sight lines that I think should be reconsidered for maybe a flashing yellow or a flashing red, like in Middletown Township.
I think we're slowly but surely getting the flashing arrows as we update lights. I know the new one that was installed on Cheney Road and Baltimore Pike has the flashing yellow arrow.
That's for a northbound movement though, right?
Yes,
Or onto Route 1.
yes.
I'm talking about turning onto Cheney from 1.
Turning onto Cheney from 1.
Like if you want to go Cheney southbound from 1, it's a left arrow, solid lead.
Okay, solid arrow.
Solid red.
Okay, we could look at that. I think as we've been upgrading some of the signals, NDOT has been allowing us to do that. But I think it would probably require a new head on the pole or whatever, but we'll be happy to look at that.
Because Middletown, that Valley Road by the Mint, I mean, you can turn left there, it's a flashing yellow. Now, they have one.
Somebody else paid for that too.
What's that?
That was paid for probably as part of the Mint development, right?
No, that light's been there. It was
Yeah, but
there before the development.
But the new head might be, okay, well, whatever. Okay,
So-
we'll look into it, yeah. We're getting more of them in the township.
Thank you for the trail out the back, by the way, that leads to the grist mill. I come up there all the time, wondering if maybe building maintenance will consider a steep version instead of the switchback. But there is a tree down across the trail, just, I don't know if they know that yet. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
Anyone else? Henry? Long time no see.
Yeah,
He's been in the other building yet.
yes. I just have a few questions.
Henry, she'll need she doesn't know you as well as we do, so.
Oh, yeah,
Can you give
I've
Amanda
spoke
your
to-
address and everything, please?
Okay, let's see. It could be Henry Heinz, could be 412 Conchester Highway, or it could be 57 Mount Airy Farm Road, whatever one you want to use. Regarding estates at Garnet Valley, okay, being that they are a cluster, are they allowed nighttime parking on the street?
I am
Because
unaware of any prohibition
that
against
street
parking.
is very narrow. It's not made for, it's only made for a car each way, that's it.
Okay, I am unaware in any of our other cluster developments of that prohibition, but we would have to look into.
Usually there is a restriction because the road is not wide.
Yeah, I know, but I don't remember in all my years here that being a condition of approval for those
Well,
roads.
if
So
there's no law against it, then there's
might
nothing.
be something with their HOA, we would have to check. I
Okay.
can't answer that.
Next, trees. There was also, I know, a restriction on cutting down trees in the estates of Garnet Valley because they cut so many trees down and they had to replant trees, Toll Brothers did.
Yeah,
Well, let's go with the historic house that's on that development. They took 6 trees down, big ones, just like 5 weeks ago. I called that in. Plus, there's 2 other houses that took trees down at their own, whatever they want to do, you just take them down. I thought they had restrictions where they couldn't cut these trees down.
I can't answer that without looking at the HOA agreement or the approved plan.
Okay,
So we would have to dig into that and get back to you on it.
I'm giving it all to you.
Thank you.
All right, next.
Yes.
Going out onto Smithbridge, Station Road from Hillbrand, I believe it is. It's a right turn only. Okay? You can't make a left. Signs are up there. There's an island there devoting traffic to the right to head towards 322 because it's at the top of the hill. And Station Road, believe it or not, from 322 to Smithbridge is 40 miles an hour. At least 2 times a month during school, I almost hit somebody because I come out at the bottom where you're supposed to. I have notified the association. One of the cars I almost hit was the association, and I was told where to stick it,
Okay.
okay?
I have to say, and not to interrupt you, but of all the months for Nate to take off, because most of these questions tonight are engineering. So I hate to pass the buck, but he would be able to recite them.
I have 4 calls into him in the past 7 months.
Okay.
You can verify that. Never got a call back.
All right. That's
And
odd.
then, one last one. My good old neighbor. who refuses to sign the paper. I just have a question. He already had a driveway to his house. Why was he allowed to put a second one in with all that extra blacktop and not make him sign the agreement?
And I even forget all the particulars on it, with the driveway and the signature and all that.
Yeah.
It's got to be going back 10 years.
He's the only one that won't sign. He already had a driveway on one end, okay? And he decided he wanted to come straight in and make a loop and have a loop around. And he got a permit to do that without signing off. I don't understand it.
Well, I think it'd be fair to say that we had visited these issues at least 5 years ago, right?
No, this driveway we just put in last year.
No, but I know, but the idea of him not signing the agreement.
Right. That's been going on for years.
That's been going on. And that's sort of a private matter between you and your neighbor, I believe, I think.
It is private. But the thing is, you gave him a permit to put another driveway in without saying, hey, why don't you sign this agreement? Because that's part of signing this agreement, that you're going to maintain that port right there and help prepare it.
I'd be happy to look into it, sir.
Okay.
Parking on the streets in the state of Garnet Valley, the speed limit on Station Road.
Speed limit, fine. It's just come to the top of that hill. The worst time is during school. That's the worst time, in the morning, noontime, and in the afternoon, when school's out. Because parents just come right out there and just make the left. They don't care.
Right, and the
But
other-
Henry, I will be happy to look into it, but it would, as you just agreed, the signing of the agreement is a private matter. And if the township, and I'll look into the permit and why the permit was issued, but let me finish.
Go ahead.
But if the township took the position that we're going to not issue a permit that he may be entitled to unless he signs an agreement, well, may not be fair.
If he already had a driveway?
I'm just informing you that may be a possibility, but I'll be happy to look into it.
I'll just leave it at that.
Okay.
Okay, that's it. I'm done.
Good
Maybe I'll
seeing
see
you
you in
again.
another 6 months or so.
Yes. Dean, you got something?
Gene Goebel, 7 Quaker Lane. Thank you to Manos and Mr. Donahue for reaching back to Judge Roberts. Quick question on your comment this evening, Mr. Donahue. You made the statement that no work had been done since March other than shielding on the pre-existing lights. The phrase pre-existing, you didn't mean existing nonconformance? What do you mean by that phrase?
Well, this is Mr. Cavadias's letter.
Okay.
Okay, which
No problem.
but no, that's okay. I think what he's referring to is the new shields
Right.
that were put on the lights that were
Right.
pre-existing on the walls.
Correct.
Okay.
But a reminder, those lights were not existing nonconformances. They were installed recently, last couple of years, without permits, and they were actually cited for not having permits. Which leads to my next question. The building immediately behind the restaurant, I think it was December, year and a half ago, the owner, licensed contractor, who was under citation for doing electrical work without permits. Why he's under citation for that, he did the structural work without permits. That drove a stop order that's still under and still has particle board, chipboard on the outside for the last over a year and a half. What's the status to the finish line, and what is the finish line?
I'll refer that to Mr. Cavadias because he issued the stop work order, but there is, I believe, a stop work order in effect, and there's been no, as far as I know, no further, let me finish.
Okay.
There's been no further development on that particular building.
I think you're correct, but can it stay that way forever with the chipboard on the outside of the building where they illegally blew holes, or at some point do they have to make an appropriate repair? I mean, they don't have to use it, but I'm just wondering, will the chipboard be there forever? Could it be? I don't think so.
That's a fair question. I don't know the state of the chipboard or the kind of chipboard or whether it's weatherproof chipboard. I just don't know. But I'll have Mr. Cavadias look into that.
Whatever. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
My last comment, concern is still not quite understanding the ongoing parking on the portion of the old James Pool slab that is adjacent to the residential zone lands. I had made a comment in August of 2020 about how I did not think it was code compliant, and Mr. Pledge, I thought you made the comment something to the effect of, well, you know, if a building could be there, burns down, they can certainly use the slab to park. I made the comment, well, they don't even have the lot lines painted or parking stops that were required by code, and you said, well, that would certainly need to happen. The row furthest from the residential zone line does have the parking stops. As of today, the side of that slab closest to the residential does not. So they tend to creep off the lot closer and closer to residential. Since that last engineer Kelly survey was done, that was not gravel off of the slab towards residential. They slowly add gravel, slowly creep the cars. The building that was there for many years was non-conforming to the buffer zone code. Then the restaurant with a liquor license was added. Then it becomes a parking lot. But when you go from a building to a parking lot, you are increasing the degree of nonconformity. When you have a liquor license, your parking has to be 40 feet from a residential. They're at 20 and creeping closer. So they need a special exemption per code. And they certainly need the stops, which you had promised almost 2 years ago.
Remember the conversation about adaptively reusing the slab as a parking lot, and saw no objection to that in my mind. I do recall the comment of putting the parking blocks in. I was unaware they are not in. Perhaps I need to talk to Mr. Cavadias also.
Or do you perceive it's a violation of code for a change in use of a nonconformance to increase the degree of nonconformity?
I don't want to get into that without talking to our solicitor and our zoning officer. You asked me if I said, could the parking lot be adaptively used for parking? And I thought it could be and should be. I do remember the comment about the parking bumpers, and if they are encroaching off of that paved area and it keeps growing by the day, that is not right. That should be repaired
Not by the
and
day,
fixed.
but it does grow, and there are no stops there. Okay. I will send some code excerpts. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Anyone else? Amanda, we did have one via email tonight.
Yes, we received an emailed public comment from Mr. Cleary that I will summarize. He is asking a question as to why the township doesn't have involvement in the school bus safety of the children. However, we are able to engage SEPTA regarding bus stop safety, and he is questioning why we can't do the same with the school district and the bus stops. Additionally, he comments on his suggestion that he gave in September of 2020 regarding PennDOT and adding a deceleration lane on a southbound US 1 for turns on the schoolhouse lane, and the timeline and related activities for the future plans of that is his question and comment. He also comments that he thanks us for the bocce courts. What else does he say in here? I think that's pretty much it. Thanks.
Next in the agenda is the consent agenda. There are 4 items, various topics under those items. The first thing we will be asking for a motion on, and these will all be as one motion and 1 second after discussion. That first, and then discussion, and then a vote, would be to approve the public meeting minutes of June 7th, 2022. Number 2 would be the total expenditures for the month of $806,114.23. which is made up of a June payroll of $253,510.89, current bills totaling $262,608.83, and sewer bills totaling $289,994.71. It would also be approving the following certificates of payment. The first one in the amount of $8,761 to BSS Contractors. They are for the alteration work that's being done to the lower level of the annex or the brick building directly across the driveway. The second would be payment number 3 to JEV Construction. They're involved in the rebuild at the sewer plant for $90,725. And payment number three would be to Able Fencing for various fence projects in the township for $62,640. We would also be approving the financial releases to Home Suites 2, release number 2 from the developers agreement of $179,894.67, and Home Suites release number 1, the sidewalk escrow of $131,150.06. Do we have a motion to approve those?
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Any questions or discussion on any of those items? Seeing none, all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
To call the chair, John, you want to do Schoolhouse Lane real quick? Excuse me. I think this will go to Mr. Cleary's.
Mr. Cleary will be happy to share what I have to say. The township has authorized Higgins, who's our signal maintenance contractor, to complete the signal improvements at the intersections of Cheney, Baltimore Pike, Stony Bank, and Baltimore Pike. Work is underway, and we are hopeful it will be completed in July. Once complete, the township will then authorize Higgins to complete the initial modifications to Schoolhouse/Baltimore Pike, restricting the northbound left turn from Schoolhouse to Baltimore Pike. So that is Nate Klein's update regarding Schoolhouse Lane.
Okay, at the call of the chair, I'm going to jump around in the agenda. We're going to go to item number 4, which is to accept as complete for filing the following application. 664 Concord Road, final minor subdivision plan, consolidating the township sewer properties. Over the years, the township has accumulated numerous properties that adjoin the plant, and we are going to put them all on one parcel. Do we have a motion to accept that plan?
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Mr. Crossan, if you'll take us home, Resolution 31 of 2022.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. This is the adoption of the Comprehensive Recreation, Park, and Open Space Plan, and we have with us this evening Mark Morphy from Pannoni and Associates, our township engineer, to present a summary of this plan. This is part of our comprehensive plan, and the full plan is quite comprehensive and quite long, but we also have a very nice executive summary that was put together for easier digestion, and Mark is here to walk us through the highlights of this plan for adoption.
Great. Thanks, John. Hello, everybody. I'm Mark Morphy with Pannoni. I'm a landscape architect. I've worked on this project for a couple years, as well as many other planning initiatives and other things in the township, and we're very proud of this plan. I am going to walk through a few images here. I'll walk through these very quickly, but of course we can go back and discuss anything anybody cares to. In case anybody hasn't seen the plan yet, we encourage everybody to do so. It's linked right from the homepage of the township website. Some screenshots here you can see. Take a look. There's an awful lot of good information in it here. I'm just going to give a quick overview and some highlights tonight. Speaking of open space and recreation, just take a second to talk about what we consider to be open space. And it's really a very broad term that covers an awful lot of different types of land. This is the township map. You can see we have categorized different types of open space, everything from land that's protected as part of HOAs to active parks, basically land that's protected from development in some way or another, and there's a whole variety of ways that might be. The school grounds are open space. So really, when you add all these types of open space together, there's an awful lot of resources that the township has. The township makes use of many of these. Some resources are not very well used, so that was one of the goals of the plan, to start to form some ideas on how to better utilize these lands. This is part of really an ongoing commitment the township has made to open space and recreation, especially in recent years, the past 10 years and 5 years. An awful lot of kind of new facilities, newly protected lands, all kinds of new things, conservation easements have occurred in the township. Again, as well as, we see some images of the trails that have been developed in recent years as part of the growing network of trails. Also emphasize the planning that's been done prior to this plan. This is really just the latest in a series of plans that have been done over the years that help document what the values of the population are, what the goals of the council are, and what planned actions are. And there's a lot of reasons for why we do planning, and I know that what excites people is shovels in the ground and new pickleball courts and things, and not just another document on the website, but as well as allowing us to kind of talk about and have a dialogue about all these questions. It also leads to funding, because the township has been really successful and aggressive in receiving grant funding to pay for open space acquisitions, capital improvements, and other things, more than $5 million in the past, 7 or 8 years here. All these programs are competitive, and the more you can demonstrate that the idea you want to fund is something that emerged through a planning process that was deliberate and thoughtful, the more competitive your application is going to be. I think I'm not saying anything anybody doesn't know, but just to emphasize the reason that we do these plans and spend the time and invest the energy to do that, it shows in the bottom line. Leading right into public involvement, we worked on this plan for 2 years. We had an awful lot of public involvement. There was the Voice Your Vision sessions that many of you up here participated in a year ago, which generated a lot of comments and input from the public. We did an opinion survey online that was specific to this open space plan a little more than a year ago, and more than 1,500 unique responses to this survey were received. And anybody who's had anything to do with projects like this and trying to solicit input, it is almost unprecedented and remarkable level of responsiveness, and it really shows that this is an issue that people really care about in Concord, enough to take the time to participate in the survey and let everybody know what their thoughts were. Again, 1,500 people responded to this. We asked specific questions and also allowed people to give open-ended comments. Thousands of individual comments were received. Every single one of those comments is in the report, in the back, in the appendix. If anybody cares to flip through all those pages, you can read every single comment that every member of the public gave. And I think what we ended up with in the report really reflects the dominant themes that we heard from people that responded to the survey. I just picked a couple of the survey kind of results here, just to give you a flavor of what we asked and what the responses were. Are you satisfied with what's in the township? 80% of the people said yes, they were satisfied to one degree or another. So that's great. But then, there's the goal is to do more. On the right, the question is, how can we best invest limited resources? And by far, and this came through over and over again in questions and responses, preservation of open space was almost the single biggest priority that was expressed by residents. That preserving, there was a sense that over the decades, the township had gotten developed to a certain degree. The remaining open space, people really highly value that, and preserving natural resources. So that's what came through very, very clearly in the survey. We asked lots of questions about what new things would you like, which are most important. Again, trails was very, very prominent all the way through the responses. That people really like the idea of trails that connected with each other, a network of trails that took you places. Again, there was lots of things that were desired by the public. Trails was number one. So I will just. There's an awful lot of recommendations, specific and general, in the study. I'll just kind of hit a few of the highlights here to finish up. We grouped just so everybody could wrap their arms around what all the recommendations were, we grouped them into 5 categories, which are the categories you see here, sort of different themes for the recommendations. So just flip through each one. Go ahead, Amanda. This is a little bit of a weird diagram. It's to help visualize geographically the location of the major recommendations. Where in the township are we talking about? The red circles are, of course, the township building and then the Park and Smith Bridge Road. And these are in red because these are seen as the hubs of active recreation, sports and games and those types of activities. Where new active recreation is desired, the idea is we look to those 2 places first instead of locating things, other places. We build these hubs or concentrations of activities. 3, 4, and 5 in green are hubs of passive recreation. This is where we have more than just one single property. Maybe we have a collection of properties. Down number 4, you see we have Clayton Park, Bush Hill Farm, some other things. 5 is First State. 3 is along Temple Road. Again, township properties that have not been developed to a great extent, but have potential to be. 7 and 8 are the Octorara Trail and the Garnet Valley Greenway. 2 of the sort of bigger trail spines. We have recommendations for trails in many places throughout the township. Those are the 2 major spines. And then number 6 is the historic area. This is the Ivy Mills Historic District. The idea of conserving, preserving that landscape is very important. Not that some of these things couldn't take place in other places, but just to sort of give you a sense of it. Again, I'll flip through quickly some of the major recommendations. Conservation recommendations: acquire new open space where there's land that has natural resource value, can add to the resources of the township. That's important to people. Easements, in recent years, there's been a focus on that. Again, continuing to do that where there's opportunities. Having a focused way to manage these lands. The township is acquiring more lands. Demands of maintenance and managing vegetation, habitats, all kinds of things is becoming greater. Having a well thought out plan to tackle that and be responsible for that is important. And then building partnerships outside of township staff, township resources to draw on private groups, nonprofit sector, corporate, all kinds of other partners to run programs. I mean, Newland Grist Mill is one obvious example of a nonprofit partner that benefits township residents. Can we develop other partnerships that add to the resources that can benefit residents? Trails, constructing the Octorara Trail, constructing the Garnet Valley Greenway. When we say construct, we really mean plan and design and construct. Garnet Valley Greenway, of course, is the very initial stages of planning. There's a lot of work that needs to happen before we're walking on it. Trail connections to First State, that's something that's seen as a gap. We're beginning to connect places within the township. There's not a great connection for a pedestrian or somebody on a bike to get across 202. And then around Clayton Park, Bush Hill Farm, Bethel Featherbed, those properties there, being able to connect those together and expand the trails. Again, just an image. Octorara Trail was mentioned earlier tonight. This is the very first phase from 202 over to Temple Road. Again, we mentioned that this is in design, and it's been partially or almost entirely funded for construction of the first phase. So this is the template for some of these other recommendations: planning, design, moving to construction.
Mark, just to stop there, Amanda, if you could go back one time. Ken, if you'll notice, everything in blue there is PICO property. So to your question earlier about working with PICO on the easements to build this phase, you can see so much of the beginning of that trail is PICO property. So that's why we need to work with them on those easements.
Correct. Yep. Passive recreation, and here we mean as sort of a terminology lingo, passive recreation, but this is, walking, trails, bird watching, things like that. Bethel Featherbed, that hub with the Hall property, Bush Hill Farm, now Featherbed, is really, you're developing a concentration that is going to have great potential. Same as on Temple Road, some of these properties, Phipps Farm on the corner, and then further up. So again, there's potential to figure out what to do with these properties. Another thing that came through this third bullet is community gathering spaces. Of course, there's the bandshell in the park. There was the sense that is there another good space for different kinds of events, larger events, that in addition to this space. So that is something to look for and try to plan for. Again, just one image for passive recreation. Get a sense of this sort of cluster of public property that's adjacent to each other. Can these be thought of and planned as a group? Active recreation mentioned earlier, really two clusters of active recreation on township managed properties. The idea is to look more closely here at the Township Municipal Complex and Smith Bridge Road to see if there was a desire for more types of activities, facilities, which ones could best fit into the existing parks that we have. So that's something that we hope to be able to do within the next year so that we plan ahead for things you might want to do in the future. And again, programming also, the township doesn't run a lot of its own programs, relies on nonprofits, BYC and others to do that. So strengthening those relationships, maximizing opportunities for residents in that way. Again, active recreation, it's always ongoing. These are photos of the new courts. And then management, the first few categories were types of places. This final category is how do you manage all those places? So, having more with the township, having more public works capacity. Obviously, the more things you build, the more properties you add, the greater demands for maintenance and management. And then building in opportunities for volunteers. You see in lots of other places where there's friends of this park or that park or other sort of established frameworks for people to volunteer. And that really really almost every community that does a good job is able to do that because they have volunteer support for management. And that's something that, hopefully Concord can find a way to improve. So that, again, in a quick nutshell, is the overview of the recommendations, the scope of the plan. We hope everybody who hasn't had a chance can take a look at it on the website. Did bring a few other hard copies if anybody wants one, and be happy to discuss or answer any questions.
Thank you very much, Mr. Morphy. It was a lot of work, as you noted, a number of years in the making. The COVID pandemic and everything else did not help with timing, but there are a number of detailed recommendations, like you said, that you hit on the highlighted themes, but there's there's a lot of good detail in this plan and recommendations which Council looks forward to incorporating into our budget discussions and budget planning, as well as working with the new Parks and Rec director once we hire that person this year, and hopefully expanding our Public Works team as well. So given that, I'd like to move that we resolve this resolution number 31 of 2022, whereas Concord Township has prepared a comprehensive recreation, park, and open space plan for Concord Township, and whereas the purpose of the plan is to identify key opportunities and provide a wide variety of recommendations for ways the township can protect and improve its parks, recreation, open space, and environmental resources to enhance the quality of life for current and future township residents. And whereas the plan was financed in part by Community Conservation Partnerships Program grant under the administration of Pennsylvania Department of Conservation and Natural Resources, now therefore be it resolved by this council that the project was completed in accordance with the DCNR grant agreement. All project expenditures have been made in accordance with the DCNR grant agreement. The plan and related materials are acceptable to Concord Township, and the plan and related materials will be used to guide future recreation and conservation decisions. Mr. President, I so move.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Any questions or discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, next item on the agenda is adjournment. Do we have a motion to adjourn? Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you for coming out.